Ladies, bros, non-binary those, welcome back to the Moonlight Kingdom Podcast. Oh, Moonlight citizens. This is your man on the moon, the Moonlight King himself, here to bring you an episode that has all to do with Big Boy Blue. Yeah, that's right, folks. With the recent trailer of the Superman Legacy, I'm sorry, just Superman now. Fuck what anyone says. I'm gonna call it Superman Legacy, all right? I'm not just calling that movie Superman because this shit's gonna be confusing as fuck if I'm talking about Superman in the movie called Superman. All right, I'm gonna call it Superman Legacy. So that's what it is. Yeah, that's all this podcast gonna be. It's very eccentric. I am joined by a great host, a gracious guest. But I met this person on TikTok. They've been very friendly. They've been very helpful in my journey there. I got a channel over on TikTok on which I just post the random stuff that comes up, and whatever I, encounter that day. And they've been very helpful. This is a very specific podcast as it ties into Superman and, Superman Legacy, not just Superman Legacy, but Superman over the years, though the Superman we've gotten in live action, whether it be Christopher Reeve or Brandon Routh or Henry Cavill, my personal favorite. I always enjoyed Man of Steel, and I get to just geek out and talk about why I enjoy that movie, my thoughts on the other movies, and we also hear another person's thoughts on it. So that's what makes it so good. Anywho, let's get on with proceedings right here on this old episode of Moonlight Kingdom Podcast. We talk about Big Boy Blue in 3, 2, 1. James Gunn has a solid track record when it comes to superhero fare, especially in regards to like the Guardians trilogy, and applying some of those sensibilities to the DC universe might be the right call, considering for the better part of a decade, DCEU was just the poster child for dark and gritty. But that may have worked in the 2010s when the MCU was light and family friendly, and we kind of didn't have that alternative that the more grown up fans could turn to. But nowadays, it's like, well, everybody's dark and gritty. We have The Boys, we have Invincible, we have Deadpool and Wolverine, we have these R-rated superhero films everywhere. So it's like that flew then, but it doesn't flew now. And the DCEU at the time was a good contrast to be like, we needed movies like that to go so dark so that Marvel could come in and be so light. So with James Gunn coming in and his style of filmmaking and attaching it to the projects that he's already announced, whether it be Superman Legacy, Creature Commandos and the likes of that, it's definitely something to be excited about. Like, one thing that could be a potential hang up would be the desire to emulate too much the tone of those old Christopher Reeves films. Because say what you want about David Cornsweet or Cornsweet, I think his name is, but he very much.
I have no idea which way.
Okay, I'll say Cornsweet because I don't know you better, but he very much gives off Christopher Reeves vibes, and it's that's a good thing, but it also comes with its own hang-ups of okay, did you cast this man because you think he's right for the part, or did you cast this man because he was the closest to pulling off a Christopher Reeve impression? Because we've already done that with Superman Returns, and that wasn't okay. That was what it was.
Yeah, I kind of feel like one way they could really go with this is drawing inspiration from that unique feel that the Guardians films have, where it's it mixes campy comedy with intended comedy. Superhero campiness is it kind of had its own magic that was really peaking in the 2000s, and then they kind of moved away from that for a more intentional comedy in the MCU, and then more of the intentional gritty seriousness that comes from the superhuman fighting, and you think back to films the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films and how those were able to mix the two fairly well, and then you think to Guardians, where they kind of brought back some of that kind of inherent campy comedy that is pretty unique to superhero style, while still not losing like the kind of I don't know, like I guess genre shifts that had happened over the past 10 or so years. And I think you can kind of keep going in that direction, maybe with DC, and kind of like fuse in a little bit that of like natural camp that comes from the superhero stories, and then but also bring that sort of that sort of comic book grit that also naturally exists that they were already kind of capitalizing on. And I think they could really get something that feels both classic and modern at the same time without being, it's funny that you brought up Superman Returns, the kind of can't quite commit to one or the other thing that we got with that film,
Yeah. It was, it's definitely something that they could pull off in regards to how they choose to approach this version of Superman. And it's definitely, this movie, above all movies he announced throughout his slate, is the most important movie in that slate, because Superman, if you get Superman wrong, now granted, Superman is a hard character to get right to a point that everyone can agree, but it's understandable enough that if you get Superman wrong, your whole DC universe is fucked, because he's very much the face of the whole thing.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things, you have to get it right.
Absolutely. But yeah. Okay, I wanted to get your take on, like, I wondered, how did you feel about Henry Cavill's Superman in Man of Steel? Because there was that common detractions of like, oh, he's too mopey, he's not like, he's not smiling, he's not the kind of guy to save kittens from trees and stuff like that. So how did you feel about that shift in, like, that version of Superman?
That's a good question. It's been a while since I've watched his portrayal. I want to say the last time was when the alternate cut of Justice League came out, and just trying to kind of connect it back from there in my memory. I think that most of my hangups with like Man of Steel weren't really in his performance, because I'm kind of with a character that's been around as long as Superman has. I definitely am always open to new interpretations that don't lose the spirit of the character. And I feel like maybe, they were still keeping in enough inherent qualities of Superman that I didn't really notice those gripes that other people had with it. But I'm also a very forgiving movie watcher. Like, for real. Like, I feel like I could watch a movie that's kind of garbage and I'd still give it a 5 out of 10. So, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I definitely see where they're coming from. Like, I did not notice that, but at the same time, it didn't really make me feel like it was missing enough Superman to where it took away from the Superman experience for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt the same way. I honestly, it's my favorite. It's my favorite live action Superman. Like I've said earlier in the live stream, like the first Superman movie had this tagline of like, "You'll believe a man can fly," but in my personal experience, it wasn't until I saw him in Man of Steel taking off for the first time, and you just had the music swelling and his father's voice narrating over him, and like when he took off for that first time, you saw like before the takeoff, you saw like his fist touching the ground and the dirt swirling, and it's like kapow, he's gone. That was like a moment where I just like I forgot I was watching a movie for a sec. It's like holy shit.
Oh my gosh! Thank you for the roses, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, thank you. You know what? Good. Briar's so good. Like she's such a good person.
Beyond just that being genuinely like a gift, like I feel like you're probably also helping boost a young live too, and I really appreciate that.
Oh yeah, they are. They've been very helpful throughout this whole process.
Taps in there, my part.
Oh yeah, much appreciated. Just having these spaces where we can just sit and talk and nerd out every now and then. We'll have like the serious topic once in a while, but like there will be those laughs where I'm just like, hey, I'm just gonna play some music. We're gonna kick back and like listen to it. Have something you want to add, throw in the request, or I'll just like throw on a topic like this, like, hey, there's this new Superman movie coming. What y'all think about it? But It's like back to Man of Steel.
The thing is, this is like, this might be the last 2 months of, or less than that, it might be the last month and change of, American access to TikTok. So it's like, this is a lawless land. You know what? If you can just express yourself genuinely and somehow, get the outreach to come up with it, I'd say just go that route first. Why not? Who knows how long we have?
Yeah, it'll be a real bummer when that time comes. Like, I still can't believe it actually went through. I thought, like, they'd change their minds, but hey, it is what it is. The unfortunate thing of it all is, like, there's a bunch of people whose livelihoods are built off of TikTok. Like, whether it's, like, using it as promotion or to promote an outside venture, or, like, this is their outside venture, they're, like, a live stream every day. Like, those people are going to seriously miss out on work in, when TikTok is gone. And that's a really saddening thing to hear. That makes me sad. I like TikTok, but I've seen some of the apps come and go. Yeah, it's unfortunate that this app, which has burned the brightest in the shortest amount of time, has to go the way of an app like a Vine or Tout or something like that. But yeah, heck, even Twitter, good old Twitter, RIP, swapped out for that funky X. But yeah.
Yeah, really. But you know what? I mean, the thing is, I have already seen people trying to, kind of consolidate, like, where do we move to keep in contact with each other, And I'll say this app's name because I'm sure it won't, hold back the live, but because TikTok and Lemonade are, like, connected, you can, like, connect your accounts. And the thing is, even though it's the same company or whatever, that kind of overheads it, and that makes you think that probably lawmakers would go after that too. Through this, the bureaucracy would take time. So people follow each other on there, go on the Purple Stream app. If any of your creators go there, go support them there when they go live there. I'm sure we can still keep something together. Keep some of those connections.
It'll be an interesting thing to do because for the longest time, it was like social media was like an open window into someone's house, but now on TikTok, it's like, it's not just an open window, it's like a Truman Show drone that's like following around their day to day, and they're showing you like, hey, this is my life, this is like, what I do, and here's what I like to talk about, and things like that. Everybody became their own, they were their one-man Truman Show. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, it's like the weirdest mix between, being a reality star and just running a blog.
Yeah.
So we're right smack dab in the middle.
Oh, yeah. Oh, just the thing of it all, like, man, and to think, like, 2 years ago, I wanted nothing to do with this app. Like, 2 years ago, this was a different app. 2 years ago, this was like just people dancing in their living room and like, 1 minute videos and all that. So it's like, I'm not about that life. I'm not going to just like be like tripping over coffee tables and stuff, trying to copy the latest Ariana Grande tune dance or whatever. Like, that's not going to be me.
Right.
But then like things changed and we were allowed to put up longer videos and different fan bases started coalescing here. And it's like, there might be something. And then you start discovering the live creators, like the people who would go live. It's not like on YouTube where you're live and it's just you. The fact that you can actually bring people up and converse with them, that was the real game changer above all else that made things what they are. That people could send gifts and like, express themselves with how they like the live and all the different filters and effects and everything. That's what, like, I love how we started off talking about Superman and we just turned into like, oh man, TikTok, we're gonna miss you. Like, just
Yeah. Well, and I gotta keep riding the train, the positivity train on this, because I think that what's really amazed me the most above all else is how it became kind of like an anti-media or like an anti-hero of media, where you kind of found a way to, sift through all the BS, depending on who you were following, who you were going through, because when something happened on the ground, it found its way through raw journalism, and it could trend, and people could see something in the world happening and get accurate information on it pretty quickly without it having to be filtered through, who leans this way politically, who leans that way politically, who's getting paid by whom, all that stuff that happens with the media where there's still some journalism integrity, but it almost feels like, it's, I don't know, monitored propaganda sometimes. And it definitely feels like the kind of stuff we get through TikTok. Although misinformation can happen, it often feels a lot more raw and perhaps trustworthy in some ways. And I definitely think that maybe, without trying to say too many specific words, I definitely think that may have had an impact on its longevity in the States.
Yeah, because, having that news, that source of information, that source of, access to people, places, and things that wasn't like oversought by, like the government that it's set in, was like definitely a thing of like, hey, we can't keep an eye on this thing like the way we do all these other apps. We don't have control over it the way we do these other apps. We're not making money off this thing the way we do these other apps, so it's gotta go. But yeah. Are both of you in the States? Not anymore. Like, so that's why, like, yeah.
I am, yeah. I mean, I'm darn close to the border with Canada, but in the States.
Good old Canada, that ever snowy place. I love how Canada is like that one kid in class who, like, like they always got their hand up and teachers asking questions, and America's like that one kid sitting behind them, always looking over the shoulder, like what you got writing over there, like, or like, yo, what's the answer to number 5? Like, so they're like, it's just like that's the most accurate description I can give. Like, yeah, America does its own thing and they do pretty good, but a lot of the good they do is like copied from elsewhere. Like, hey, what are you doing over there, UK? Nothing. Okay, I thought I saw something. What's that you say about tax? Nothing. Damn. Oh.
You know what's a fun fact that I learned recently?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fun fact I learned recently is that a lot of the American Constitution was based on certain principles, not all of them, but perhaps adapted from principles from indigenous cultures that were already here. Specifically, I can't remember the name of it, and I'm kicking myself for not writing it down. This is such a fun fact, but there was actually a matriarchal tribe of indigenous peoples, that were in the area, and yeah, when they were writing up the Constitution, they heavily referenced their way of doing things and then kind of adapted it into what we have today. They kind of, left out the matriarchy part, obvious reasons, because pretty sure that a woman didn't have a say in the original drafting of the Constitution. But I just thought that was really cool because it's kind of like, even though it has not supported, like the U.S. culture has not supported its indigenous peoples properly, it's interesting that our way of pursuing, life, liberty, and freedom, or not life, liberty, but life, liberty, and happiness has been based on the way that they did things. It kind of almost connects us to the root of humanity in this place.
Yeah. We learn a lot.
And yeah, they don't get enough credit, the indigenous peoples, that's for sure.
Most definitely. There's a lot that, people will gladly, like they'll glean about indigenous peoples, like they'll enjoy like their cultures, like their foods, clothes, and, just overall being and like the level of oneness that they have with themselves and the world around them. But when it comes to like giving people the respect they got coming or acknowledgement, it's like I don't like it that much. That's when it becomes a thing of like, it just becomes like Vegas instance. Like, you'll visit, you'll partake in everything it has to offer, but when it comes to like actually giving back, it's like, shit, I don't live here. and you'll just like go back to the way things were before. It'll be like it didn't even happen.
That's a good way of putting it, honestly. Because it does really feel like, like we came in and, well, I say we. I don't even know if I have any ancestors that were doing that. But, it's like the founders came in and they really did engage with the land, but it's like they just treated it like it was something else entirely, like a long vacation, where you don't really assimilate into the place where you're visiting. You just kind of pick and choose what you want from it.
Yeah. Taking a lot of take, but not much in the way of give. That's the unfortunate nature of it all. Yeah. I mean, like one could, yeah, that's the nature of the beast, like we're getting, getting into some like heavy things here. Like there's a whole.
Yeah, what are we doing?
Yeah, like,
if you want me to, I can wrap this back around to Superman. I have that ability. I was great at writing papers in school.
Oh yeah, like, shit, I loved doing that too. I would love getting like a random writing prompt. I would love getting writing prompts. The favorite one I got was you are pride, like you are the sin pride, and all the other sins are angry at you because you have an entire month dedicated to you. So they have schemed to come together and go up to the surface world to destroy Pride Month. But like, you want to shut that down because while Pride Month has nothing to do with you, it's the closest thing you have to like a celebration of you. And it's like, damn. And how many pages I got? Like, oh, just 2 pages. I'm like, wild. What? 2 pages? That's a book right there, man. Come on.
I was gonna say that sounds like a 6-episode Netflix season.
Yeah, that's something right there. Like you could really do something with that. But yeah, definite thing. So back to good old Boy in Blue with Oh, I gotta ask, trunks or no trunks?
You know what? I'm for the trunks. I really am. I think it can be modified and adapted, obviously, but yeah, I don't think that there's a single actual fan of Superman alive who looks at it and says, "Who's wearing underwear?" I mean, I don't know. I think we're all just down with it for the most part.
Yeah.
I understand people who are like, who were always fine with the Superman costume, then seeing new versions without it and liking those. I can see how and then you kind of move towards that perhaps, but me personally, I really think that you can't go wrong incorporating the trunks. It's already been done the silliest way possible, which is just looking like he's wearing them, wearing something on the outside that should be on the inside, so
yeah,
can't really go wrong from there.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of a hard character to mess up in terms of costume. I mean, it's easy, recognizable costume, like the blue suit, the yellow shield, and the red trunks on the outside. It's an easy thing to do, hard thing to mess up. But, like, the trunks are iconic, though I gotta say, like, honestly, I prefer him without it. Specifically, the black suit that he has when he comes back after fighting Doomsday.
Wait, yes.
That is a thing of beauty right there. And when they did it in live action, whoa, man, they nailed it. I love that suit. It's just like, when you hear the things they had planned for Superman down the line that never came to fruition, it's like, yeah, he comes back and he puts on that black suit. Even though the blue suit is right there, there's this, like Zack Snyder laid it out, it's like, he would have this arc where he would have to prove himself worthy of putting that suit back on again. I was like, damn, man, a character having an arc over several films, like, that would have been dope. That was, what could have been. But hey, it is what it is. I'm
there with you. I definitely feel those sentiments about the way that was handled, but also just from the source. That's my favorite section of what I've read of the comics. And speaking of comics, and also wrapping it around what we were talking about with the history of the USA, about a lot of take, not a lot of give. I do wonder because there is such a plethora of material to work with, and because they've already done so many big main stories, I wonder just how much we're going to get of a rehashing of the origin. I don't Gunn is probably going to minimize that because everyone's, just so familiar with it, and it's been done in film media so much recently. I know that there's going to be some minimization there of the rehash, but I do wonder the endless possibilities of going beyond that. Like what direction are they going to go with it this time? How far down the line are we going to get into Superman's story beyond that origin in this first film? I wonder who they're going to pick for perhaps a first challenge to overcome, like of his rogues gallery. I do really wonder. And I don't have any specific wants or wishes with that, but I do, at the end of the day, hope that they go an original route with it, that they use unadapted material that is really already so well written to the point where it would make their jobs easier and they could just focus on being like a visually and acting wise really satisfying kind of production put together there.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I can say with my whole chest that I am tired of seeing Superman go up against Lex Luthor. I've seen so many different ways in video games, in TV shows, in cartoons, Superman going up against Lex Luthor. Enough. Come on. It's like Batman and the Joker. We get it. It's a great pairing. There are a lot of stories to tell, but come on now. There's only so many ways you can have him go up against Lex Luthor, and it always ends the same. It seems like, Lex Luthor's got some scheme. Superman tries to stop it. Lex pulls some kryptonite. Superman is weak for a bit, but he always comes back in the end somehow. It's like, there's only so many ways you can do that.
Exactly.
But yeah, it is way too soon to do Doomsday, because that was one of the biggest mistakes of the Snyderverse movies, because Doomsday came in the second movie of that entire universe. That was a huge misstep.
Yeah, it was jumping the gun, a jump in the pew.
Yeah.
Try not to.
Yeah.
I don't know if they flag you for idioms, but
They might. But yeah, that was one of the criticisms I heard from Batman vs Superman was you burned through 6 stories in one movie, and I couldn't help but agree with that. Yeah, there's maybe not 6, but there's at least 3 movies worth of stuff in this one film, and they couldn't juggle it all. You have Batman coming out of retirement, you have Superman reckoning with the aftermath of Man of Steel, and you have Lex Luthor on a mission to take out Superman, and it's just you also have the return of Wonder Woman and the debut of Doomsday. It's and the stepping stones for what was going to be the Justice League. It's oh damn, that is 6 stories. Yeah, it's a Spider-Man 3 level of quality in terms of all these stories running at once. Neither one of them, they don't really mesh well. And this is from someone who loves Spider-Man 3. It's my favorite movie of that trilogy. But yeah, I can point at it and say, okay, Sandman is a really good villain, but he needs a little more time to get fleshed out. But at the same time, you also have to set up the rivalry between Peter Parker and Eddie Brock, and then you have to make Eddie Brock Venom, but you also have to show Peter Parker slowly succumbing to the dark side of the Venom symbiote. Oh, but then you also have to put in the stuff between Peter Parker and Harry, and then the stuff between Harry and Mary Jane, and then the stuff between Peter and Gwen Stacy. And it's whoa, this is not a movie. This is a soap opera. This is Telemundo drama right here. Just there's so much going on.
Yeah, if that movie didn't already exist, and someone told me that they had the idea to make one Spider-Man film that involved all that, I would genuinely call them crazy. See, there was no way to pace that well enough to do it justice. And it's interesting because I think that this really highlights, because I actually had similar gripes with Batman v Superman, just basically from that angle of especially because Batman and Co are my favorite section of DC. Kind of seeing a new Batman get created, but never get a solo film to handle what was going on with that character was definitely a little bit, I don't know if frustrating is the right word, but maybe disappointing is. For me, and the thing is you kind of saw DC doing to an extreme the opposite of what Marvel has been doing to an extreme, which is, Marvel will try to run a solo film or a short series out of just about anything they can think of. And meanwhile, DC is trying to consistently put out content, but it seems like they are always trying to cover more stories in one than they really need to.
Yeah.
So it's almost like they have two different sides of the coin of not being laser focused in the right way. It's interesting. I definitely hope to see that fall away with the newer. I don't think we're ever going to see that truly be resolved for Marvel as long as they're running one consistent storyline, because you're always going to be able to have in the back of your head just how much they've already put out for one connected universe. And I don't think that the strength of that gets totally overwhelmed by the weaknesses of it, but that's not really something they can resolve. Whereas getting a bit of a fresh start for the DC cinematic stuff definitely gives them a chance to avoid their version of that issue going forward. Kind of give certain things room to breathe, and certain other things, they can be willing to not go to every length to flesh out. And yeah, perhaps we'll get a better product out of that.
One can hope, especially even with Marvel, like the stuff that's been going on with like the MCU and the multiverse saga. It was definitely a case of like I'd say too much too fast, because yeah, everything is a multiverse. There's multiple versions of everybody. You kind of have this thing of like, well, then nothing is permanent. If somebody flatlines in one movie, then what's to stop the characters from just opening a portal to another universe, grabbing another one of them, and being like, oh hey, welcome back? It's like there's kind of no stakes, but at the same time, the stakes are so high that they become unbelievable. Because before, with the first Avengers movie, the city was at stake. They were fighting to save New York, but now every show, every movie, the multiverse is at stake. It's on the verge of collapsing, and it's like, I can't empathize with that. That's too big. That scale is too huge. That's an Avengers level threat being taken on by Peter Parker. I mean, Spider-Man is powerful and he's a great hero, but he's not fighting to save the multiverse from crashing in on itself. That stretches belief a bit.
Yeah, it definitely got to the point where I guess what I can point out is this. There was this moment, this kind of period of time before they put out more content addressing it, where it was like maybe 2021 or 2022. It was like after we had gotten season 1 of Loki and Spider-Man No Way Home, and there was so many multiverse impacting events happening in separate stories that there was a point there where the kind of interconnected story, the fandom wasn't sure who was breaking the multiverse.
Yes.
Which I guess kind of has its own fun drama, but it did not seem fully intentional. It kind of felt like it was like,
yeah,
okay, well, we
they didn't
know
plan
that the
this.
multiverse is breaking apart, but who is actually responsible? Because the characters within the story don't know, and we don't know, and it doesn't feel like some kind of mystery we were supposed to put the pieces together for.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah, it definitely became like a thing of like if everything is a grand scale world-ending threat, then nothing is. You couldn't really feel the stakes anymore.
It feels like that.
Yeah, if the world is always in peril, then it's like, I'm not really invested anymore, because I know everything's going to be all right. Like, you kind of got bits of that with stories like the first Doctor Strange movie where he was taking on Dormammu. Like, he didn't so much, yeah, but that was done in a way like where he didn't beat Dormammu, he just outsmarted him and he like trapped him in that loop, and that was a good way to have a world-ending threat without having that thing of like, oh man, I gotta, summon the necessary power to single-handedly battle this world-ending, destructive force. It's like, nah, the hero outsmarted the villain. There was actual stakes there because we did see Strange get flatlined over and over and over. It's like, damn, how is he actually going to get out of this? But they did, and that was back when everything was really well written and tightly well made. But circling back to, on the subject of tightly well made and like being well written, circling back to things that weren't the DCEU and the terrible handling of Superman in that universe, because it sort of just felt like after he came back in Justice League, they didn't know what to do with him. Like, the surest fire course of action would be to give him his own movie, like a proper sequel to Man of Steel, instead of having him share the limelight with Batman and Wonder Woman and all that. But that just never got off the ground. And when it seemed like it was, in the aftermath of Black Adam, it was like they immediately put paid to that and just like said, oh, that's not happening. I mean, yeah, Henry Cavill said that he was back as Superman, and DC announced that he was back as Superman, but he never like signed any paperwork saying that they would start work on a movie. We didn't, announce a film, so we could just cancel everything and start over. No problem. It's like that, personally, for me, that started the James Gunn universe on a negative footing, because it was like,
yeah, that's what it feels like.
Yeah, it just felt that way because it's like, hey, you're coming in and starting everything fresh. I get that. That is a sound idea, but like, you kind of have so many things left unfinished here. Are you really just gonna abandon that? Like, you got people riled up for a Superman movie, not him specifically, but DC, and we thought like finally he's gonna get his proper Superman movie where he can be the Superman we know and love. Now that he's gone through this arc of like proving himself worthy of being Superman and reckoning with the events of Man of Steel, we can get the Superman movie we should have gotten a long time ago. And it just didn't happen. And it was like, oh well. It felt like, James Gunn just put the end to that, but at the end of the day, that's why he was brought in. He was brought in to right the ship, and from his perspective, the only way to do that would be to get a new ship. But yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? Honestly, at the end of the day, he had to make that choice from the perspective of someone who was involved in these movies, or at least this kind of extended universe thing they had going on, because of him writing material for it, and writing material that was at least connected to it, and then kind of knowing that, I don't know, it's a big responsibility. It almost feels like he wasn't taking the easy way out. He was taking perhaps the most creatively intelligent solution to the problem, as far as freeing himself up and whatever writers he was going to work with to take certain stress off and just try to make a better product. It definitely makes sense from that point of view, rather than it being like, well, we'll just wipe it all away because it was too messy for me to try to figure out on my own, or too messy for me to try to figure out with a team of writers,
Yeah.
I kind of feel like he probably made that choice with a heavy heart.
It does have that feeling to it in a lot of ways, yeah. I'll give it that much. But yeah, it did sting though. I'll just say like that knee-jerk reaction of like, man, you shit-canned the universe just as it was getting good. I'm like, okay, whoa. Looking back on that, like when I was like, just as it was getting good, I'm like, and then the Flash happened. I'm like, okay, maybe I was wrong. It was not just getting good. But yeah. Yeah. So Superman was in this like weird state of flux for the longest time where he was in the universe, but he wasn't visible. Like he wasn't popping up in movies like Batman or Wonder Woman were. So I just like that, it did bother me a bit that I would see things. I got mad when they announced Wonder Woman 2. Because like Wonder Woman 84, because like I'm glad Wonder Woman got a sequel. She deserves it. That first movie was so good. I wanted to see more of her. But then at the same time, like, wait a minute. You made a Wonder Woman sequel before Man of Steel? And before you gave Batman his own movie, then I saw like Shazam 2, Aquaman 2. I'm like, you gave these people sequels before you gave Batman his own movie? Before, Man of Steel got a follow up? What are you doing? It was just, that was
definitely an interesting choice.
Absolutely.
I mean, you kind of think of them as the big three, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. They really are the most recognizable faces. And it is just, I don't know, it's like I said, they kind of were on the opposite side of that same problem of laser focus. They were willing to wrap up the Batman and Superman stuff into these, crossover films without giving their individual flavors a chance to really, settle on our palates.
Right. Yeah. It was just a truly bizarre state of affairs for the likes of Superman and friends in the DC Extended Universe. But there is some positivity, having the first movie in the universe be the Superman Legacy, or just Superman, as it's called, is definitely a step in the right direction and giving the character the respect he deserves.
Yeah, I'd say that much about this film. I mean, yeah, there's a lot to be said about how the DCEU ended and, well, what could have been done to, like, course correct after, the Snyder Cut was released. You would think with the release of the Snyder Cut, DCEU heads would have looked at it and gone like, okay, clearly there's still a fandom out there, and clearly there's some money to be made off of this, so we should at the very least wrap up the universe before we before we pull the plug on everything. And instead they just went with, nah, let's pull the plug right now while we still have a plug to pull, and let's get on with it. Shit, at least that's what it feels like to me. But hey, that's just what it feels like to me. I feel like that's what they should have done. I feel, in my opinion, what they should have done was, wrap up all the stories they had going. Then, you know, start fresh with a new universe instead of just starting fresh off the jump. Because, damn, man, like, just start scrapping everything, leaving all the story threads unfinished, kind of just left a huge mess. It left a universe with no ending. The final shot of the DCEU was fucking Orm eating a cockroach, and that was bullshit. That was a movie that was made not knowing that it would be the final movie in the thing, and you can tell. But still, man, the fact that that's the final shot of the DCEU, that's the last thing that everybody sees, is some bull fucking shit. That's my take on it, all right? Fuck that bullshit. Anyway, yeah. That's what I got to say. On to the next part of this.
It feels like these things, almost like there's something missing in not building that up over the course of maybe just a couple films, maybe, it's an origin film. It's, I'm okay. I've learned to work with sidekicks, and I've taken down a couple more major villains, that didn't get, limelight in recent films. And then you can imagine a crazy Bad Family film that really, really gave a chance to shine some of those characters who've never been on the big screen. And I wonder, kind of jumping across that middle film kind of feel, and then also having it not be the same Batman as Robert Pattinson's portrayal. I do really wonder how that's going to settle with me, like how I'm going to ignore that in the back of my mind while I'm trying to enjoy the film, years down the road when it comes out.
I mean, definitely something to think about in regards to just the character of Batman in this new universe, because for the longest time, which is like 20 years almost, because 20 plus years, because like Batman and Robin was in the 90s, there was no other members of the Bat family in the Batman in terms of live action.
I lost audio for a sec.
Yeah. We coming through? Yeah, for the longest time, Batman wasn't, allowed to have a Robin. So if he can't have Robin, he can't have his other sidekicks because it just wouldn't work in the realm of the story. Especially since the longest time it was Christian Bale Batman, like, because that Batman did not make sense to have a sidekick. He did not really make sense to have like a teenager running around with him fighting crime. It wouldn't feel right, like just to have a Tim Drake or a Barbara Gordon, with him in those days, because he was very much still early in his crime fighting career. But even with Ben Affleck's Batman, he had the opposite problem. He was too far into his career as Batman to have a sidekick running around, because he was very much the Dark Knight Returns type Batman, where he's like this seasoned veteran. He even says, like, 20 years fighting crime in Gotham, like, what's it got us? And we see the ruined, like, Robin costume. So that was, and that's like a sign, like, oh, he did have a sidekick, but it didn't end well. So we know what happened there. But, or at least we thought we did, until Zack Snyder revealed that ruined costume does not belong to Jason Todd. It actually belonged to Dick Grayson. So the Robin who didn't survive in this universe wasn't Jason Todd, it was Dick Grayson. And that's why, Batman essentially lost it, and he gave up on his no flatlining rule, because in his eyes, losing Jason Todd, he lost a sidekick. But had he lost Dick Grayson, the response would have been vehemently different. Because essentially he just lost a son, and he would snap. Because even in the Injustice movie, when we see Nightwing get flatlined by Damian Wayne by mistake, it's this thing of, like, we see him snap. Like, he's just, he's experienced loss before, but this is different.
Yeah, not to mention that, in the Jason Todd story, he gets absolved of some of that conflict when he's brought back, by the League of Assassins. So it's like, that in this universe, with Batfleck, it definitely did not happen that way. You know what I mean? It's definitely just, death was permanent, and it was the first time he probably opened up his heart like that, and it didn't work out, and it basically convinced him to shut it down forever.
Yeah.
And I think that it's interesting that you brought up that we saw an early career fleshed out for the Christian Bale Batman, because it is very true, but at the same time his portrayal was a very mature Batman, whereas what we got from Robert Pattinson's portrayal was a very immature early years Batman. And I think that almost is why it's set up well to maybe have a Robin, like even a young Robin, come in a second film if they chose to go that route, because I feel like it could force some much needed maturity onto him and kind of force him to develop that more mature and and even social persona that Batman operates by day, that was kind of missing, in the recent film. And I think that's one route they could go with it, where it's like, you've got this early Batman, and you're taking advantage of the fact that he's early on to see a lot of growth happen.
Oh, definitely. Of the Batman that we've gotten so far in live action, he's the one who can be the most open to having a sidekick if they do it right. Because, you can't have the Robin from the comics with like the tights and like the revealing pants and everything. Like, that's not gonna jive well in this version of Gotham. But like, if they do it right, if they give us like, because this is, say what you want about Ben Affleck's Batman, people say he was dark and gritty, but Robert Pattinson's Batman really leaned in on the dark parts of things, because, man, Gotham was grimy, and like you really got the sense like this place is not a place you want to live. But yeah. So yeah, giving Batman a sidekick of the Batman, he's the one most open to it now that, especially with the end of that movie being like, when that light hits the sky, it's not just a warning, like it's a symbol. It means hope, which is like, I'm sorry, that was corny. I get what they were going for, but
it really was, but there's a corny side to Batman that is almost like it's like an ironic quality to it, where he's so serious and he's so regimented in his ways, and he's such a smooth operator sometimes. You know, he's almost like an efficient killing machine that doesn't kill. And then you look at his choice of costume, the way he keeps every piece of tech themed, you know, and he's got this bubbly playboy persona that he just puts on, you know, for his daytime hours just because it serves him well. And he really is. It's funny how much Batman is like a walking paradox sometimes. And yeah, I think kind of taking him from the, you know, I am turning into Batman because I cannot process my trauma right now, taking him from that Batman to like being on the precipice of becoming a full-fledged character of Batman that we usually see the comics begin with. I think that was a fun move, and I do look forward to whatever they come up with for a sequel.
Absolutely. You know, like just I do, you know, it's a good thing like that movie exists, and we'll see where he goes from that point on. Now that he's gone from this figure of fear, you know, like to the point that, you know, like he did, when someone asked him like oh, who you supposed to be, like everybody when we watched that first trailer, even that teaser, was expecting him to be like, I'm Batman, because he always says it. That's his line. I'm like, we were sitting there waiting for him, like, all right, he's gonna say it, but then he was like, I'm vengeance. I was like, wait, what? But he really leaned into it in the sense that, oh, this isn't the Batman we know. This guy is way more harder on crime. Like he beat up like those thugs like they owed him money or something. Like damn.
Yeah, exactly.
And the criminal underworld was naturally just afraid of him on sight. That was the first. Okay, not the first, but that was like a Batman who could inspire genuine dread without doing anything. You just knew he was there. That moment on the train station where you didn't see him, you just heard his footsteps thumping closer and closer, and everybody just stopped. That was like right there. That was perfect, because it was like it really nailed the feel of like. I think the closest movie that showed how scary Batman can be was Batman Begins, when he was like picking people off one by one, and he finally got to Scarecrow, and he sprayed him with his own gas, and then he looks at like the face, and you just see this like greasy, like gross, leathery faced Batman, and he's like, who are you working for? It's like, damn, that was some scary shit. That scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. I'm like, what the fuck? What the heck, Batman? Like, what the? Oh, but I loved it. And it was just so, like, that creepy nightmare Batman was just in that one scene. But in the Matt Reeves movie, it's like, what if we took that and we made it the whole movie? But at the end, he sees the error of his ways, and, like, he can't just be vengeance to everybody who does wrong. He also has to be this beacon of hope to the good people in Gotham. He sees at the moment that guy in the Riddler mask, like, pulls off his mask, and he asks him, like, who are you? And he goes, I'm vengeance. And right there, it's that moment of like, whoa, shit, is that what I sound like? God damn, I need to dial it back on the whole I'm vengeance thing. People are taking the wrong message. Also, I think it's hilarious that the whole movie, nobody calls him Batman. Everybody calls him vengeance. Even Catwoman, when she was talking to him, she was like, come on, vengeance. Let me know what's going on under there. Like, I was expecting him to be like, actually, my name's Batman. Just to say, like, but yeah. Still, though, bringing it up to, like, good old Superman, like, just, Man, I love this topic. Though, like, just that we can sit here and nerd out almost. But like, yeah, just the figure of hope. Like Batman in Matt Reeves' movie, realizing that he can inspire hope. It always just the hope felt more like a Superman thing. But like, do you feel? I gotta ask, like, as this figure of hope that Superman is, do you feel like he's gotta live up to it in a sense, like, oh, he's gotta be perfect, he has to, he's smiling all the time, he's saving kids from trees, he always saves the day, and, stops the bad guy's plan, like, he always has to hold up to that same standard?
I think it's interesting because I think the standard of symbol of hope and the kind of person that Superman traditionally is he's not like Jesus. He is a Superman. Like he's like everything you would hope for, like a local man that you could meet and interact with to be like a new person shows up at your workplace, and when you talk to him, he's patient, he's kind, he's capable, he's dependable, and you get it's these qualities dialed up to 11, where I don't see perfection in Superman, but I see this kind of steadfastness and this kind of like someone you would aspire to be that really makes him that symbol of hope. And I think the fun way for me to look at it differently is, Superman is this kind of symbol of hope that drives away fear, where I feel like Batman is this symbol where it's kind of like facing your fears. It's like the daydreams versus the nightmares. During the day, you dream up what you want your life to be and what you want to accomplish someday. And while you're sleeping, your brain forces you to kind of conquer your fears through processing it in a different way. And it kind of feels like there's this yin and yang with Superman and Batman, where Batman's kind of like, well, what if the things that go bump in the night fought each other so you didn't have to worry? And whereas Superman is like, well, what if there's a light that would always come whenever it was too dark for you? And that's kind of what I see him like. And so I think that what he needs to be is something that just stands out above the rest, rather than being like a certain type of portrayal of him that has to be infallibly done. I think that he simply needs to stand out in some way, and that could be whether it be taking him back to a very traditional version of himself that doesn't exactly appear nowadays, or it's taking the modern man and what the modern man has become and kind of turning the whatever the positive qualities that would fight the current version of like toxic masculinity, turning those qualities up to 11 and seeing what kind of character that breeds. I think that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, having Superman be that, a figure you can aspire to, in the sense that you can look up to him, but he's not like, he's not infallible. Having him be like that kind of figure is absolutely the right way to go with that character. And I'm just, almost vehemently against the whole Superman is Jesus thing. Like, even down to like when Superman Returns, when he was like hovering over the earth, listening to people pray, or in Man of Steel when he like fell backwards out of the ship with his arms spread out. It's like, wow, dude, right. Like, man, shoot, yeah. But yeah, it's definitely good to have a Superman be, just let him, he can be that figure of inspiration and hope and all that, but also allow him to be human, allow him to have human emotions like anger and sadness and, like, heck, doubt. Like, just because you're invulnerable, doesn't mean you can't still feel. You don't still, like, get hurt in terms of emotionally or take a mental strain. But, speaking of, like, just that mental strain and everything, do you remember that first picture of Superman Legacy? They first revealed the costume, and he's just, like, sitting in the chair, and he looks tired as fuck. and he's just he looks like he's taking his shoes off. I gotta ask, what did you think of that first image where, like, he looks like he's sitting there, he's tied, he's taking his shoes off, there's a big laser in the background, like, what did you think?
I still cannot figure out why that's what they chose. I don't know if they were meaning to send a message other than just giving us an idea for the visuals they're going for, like a sampling, because it's like, you gotta wonder, I think it's just as likely a story that it's some kind of complicated critique on, this endless work that Superman does trying to make the world feel like a better place, but it could also just as well be that they were just like, okay, we want to show off the costume. All right, let's show him putting it on or taking it off. Okay, that'll put attention on the costume. All right, cool. Get a clear shot of his face. Okay, what do we put in the background? Let's show him that our VFX team isn't going to skimp on the lighting, I mean, Superman puts lasers out of his eyes. Let's put a laser in the background and show him we can make pretty lasers. I really have no idea what they were going for.
Yep. It was just so I just couldn't help but look at it like that. There's all this chaos and stuff going on in the background, and he looks like he couldn't give a fuck. He looks like he doesn't care. He looks like he's like, man, I'm sick of this shit. Let me get changed out of this motherfucker. Listen, like, that'll be there tomorrow. Shit, let me go to bed or something. Like, that's what it looked like. That's the vibe it gave off. It, like, there's all this chaos and he could care less. That's what it looked like, and that's not the look you want to give. Especially when you've said, like, oh, this Superman is going to be the happy Superman. He's going to be the more comic book accurate Superman, the goody two-shoes. And the first look we get is him looking like he's fed up with being Superman. Like, whoa. But, yeah. Oh, I couldn't believe that. Which is just like, it's really telling, because every first image before that, like every first shot of Superman before that has been of him looking cool or heroic. Like, just like, because before that it was Man of Steel, and there was just that one shot like Henry Cavill down on one knee. He's got that pose like he's about to take off, and the cape is flapping in the breeze, and it's like, damn, now that's a first image. Like, we see the costume, we see it looking like he's about to go off and do something. Even Superman Returns got it right, where he was like standing on a rooftop, the breeze was blowing, and he was looking all majestic and shit. But Christopher Reeve had like the easiest one of all, because it's just him with like his arms crossed and he's smiling towards the camera, and it's just like, that's Superman right there. Like, I mean, come on.
Right.
Yeah. But damn, him just sitting in the sofa with him taking his shoe off, like, god damn, I gotta save the city again, man. Like, just, oh man, that was, say what you want about it, but it got people talking. Definitely got people talking.
Yeah, that's true enough.
Oh.
I've never been the biggest fan of the whole, all press is good press thing. Not really the way I want to look at the world, but sometimes it's just true.
Absolutely. Sometimes it just works out that way. But,
I'm probably going to have to go get some stuff done. But I loved hanging out and talking, and I'll definitely show up when I can.
Oh, definitely. It was certainly a pleasure having you, Umbro Hero. And we would definitely be running that topic that I pitched to you way back when tomorrow. Like, it'll definitely be, well, the last time was a dry run. Now will be the, pedal to the metal, come up with like all the points we got, and like letting people come up with their reasonings and so on. This will be the first official run of that topic. So, oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna do that.
I'm hoping the laid groundwork here leads it to be where it gets, enough people coming through who are actually interested enough in that topic to engage. I think that, we have a good chance of getting a little something going there. And, I'll message you, let you know when I'm going to be around tomorrow, because there are some events going on, in the old IRL. But, yeah, it was fun chatting, and I'm sure I'll chat with you again soon.
Well, you have a good day now, Umbro Hero. Your presence is oh so wonderfully appreciated, enjoyed, and cherished throughout. This was very fun. And you too, Rai Rai, as the silent yet ever vigilant moderator of the live stream, thank you for being there, watching our backs, the Batman to our Superman and Wonder Woman. You know, we got nothing but love and respect.
Yeah, that's it. All we got, folks. This has been another episode of Moonlight Kingdom Podcast. That was a recording of a live stream I did way back when with some very well-meaning and hell, damn good people. You know, like it shows that yes, folks, the world in some places is on fire, but there do be good people out there trying to put out the flames and get all the women and children out to safety and shit. And they are one of them people. They are two examples of them people. There are plenty of people out there that it's not all shows that not all TikTok live streams are doom and gloom and rage baits and negativity. Not everybody just going about their daily lives as they're like one man reality TV show. Sometimes we are, just a couple people coming together to geek out about our favorite boy in blue out there and his red underwear on the outside wearing ass. Good old Superman. Yeah. So, this has been an episode of Moonlight Kingdom Podcast. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all them nice things. I've been your man on the moon, and I'm out of here.